actually it's evening in Spain. We're honored today to have a couple of Spaniards on the show. The main guest is Rafael Sadaba MD. He's a cardiac surgeon from Pamplona. He's going to discuss tonight his use of the technology of leap motion, and he'll explain all about that. Joining us also is John Hewitt for the second time in 2 nights. He's from Philadelphia. He's a medical writer. He went off the screen there. He'll be back. And David De Mena from Seville, Spain. He's going to, he has a background in IT and social media in Seville, and he knows about the work of Rafael, so he'll be another person. Rafael's going to give a presentation, and then we're going to open it up to questions. And anyone out there that has a question is welcome to tweet on the tweet board. So, bienvenidos, Rafael.
Thank you very much, John. Thank you very much for your invitation to be here, and congratulations for this very nice setup that you've got.
Thank you. Okay, Rafael, take it away. You can start your presentation if you'd like.
Okay, John. Let me first.
Okay, whatever you want to do.
Okay, I'll explain to you what the difficulties we have sometimes in the operating room. Operating theater, as we call it over in Europe. Okay. You know, when we are operating, we are scrubbed up, we are sterile, we have sterile hands, and sometimes we are in the need of having to look at the workstation to look at images, diagnostic images, which have been maybe taken beforehand, and traditionally we have to either scrap off and get out of our gowns and sterile gloves and go to the workstation, go to the computer and have a look at the images by ourselves. And that normally takes time. And as you may know, for us surgeons, time is quite precious and we cannot waste time. So having to scrap off our gowns is not a good thing in the operating room. So alternatively, we have to ask somebody else to have a look at these images in the operating room, and you know, sometimes that can be difficult, can be cumbersome. It's difficult to explain to somebody what exactly you want to look at in an image in a computer. So that's why we have been developing, well, more than my colleagues at TEDCAS, a system by which we can manage images, well, all type of information, all type of electronic information, without actually having to touch any screen or any computer, so we can do it with our sterile hands. In other situations, not only in the operating room, but also in the hybrid room or in the angiography room or in the cath lab, in which we have to not look at previous images, but actually having to manage images that we are working on at that time. It's also helpful to be able to manage these images without having to remove our sterile gloves. So the system that we have developed, which essentially is called the TED Cube, allows us to manage images and maybe equipment as well, only with the movement of our hands, with what we have called natural user interfaces. For that we have what is called the TED Cube, and I can show you can you see the presentation?
Okay, we can see it. Natural user interfaces.
Yeah, so that is, you know, touchless management of information in sterile environments. This is what the system is. Oh, sorry.
Okay.
This is what the system is all about. Just gonna show you. Yeah, can you see the?
Yeah, speed and
the slide over here.
Yeah, speed and simplicity.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So, can you see my mouse?
Yes, we can.
The arrow.
Yes.
Yeah. So you can see here. This is me. This is the surgeon or the cardiologist or the interventional radiologist. Who is sterile. Is scrubbed up. And this is the workstation here. And if you, as the surgeon, want to look at images or manage images in the workstation, as I was saying, you would normally have to scrub off. But we have the natural user interface, which is in the middle. The system we use is quite simple. It's a plug and play. There is no need to install any type of software in the computer or any other equipment in the surgery, in the operating room. And as you can see, we have a sensor, the TED Cube. This is the TED Cube that I was talking to you about. Okay. And the TED Cube is the heart of the technology. And basically, it is a gateway. So what it does, it recognizes my gestures, which have been predefined and customized. It processes the information that it's got from my gestures, and it translates it into a protocol that the computer understands. That's what the whole idea is about.
Right.
And that's the TED Cube. But we use a number of sensors, sensors which are commercially available. And as you know, we use the leap motion, and we use the Kinect. The Kinect is a Microsoft device which is used with the Xbox. You know, any teenager would know better than I do what it's all about. And we also use the Mayo bracelet. The Mayo bracelet is not yet commercially available, but it will be quite shortly. And if you want, I can explain to you what the leap motion is all about. Basically, the leap motion is a stereoscopic camera, so it's got two twin-calibrated cameras, which allows more or less simulation of the human binocular vision, and it's able to capture my gestures in 3 dimensions. Mm-hmm. It's very good to detect precise or very fine movements, maybe of my fingers, more of my hands. So this is one of the sensors that we use, but as well as the Kinect, the leap motion, we use the Kinect, and the Kinect is a very clever device which is able to measure the time it takes for a pulse of laser light to travel from the projector to an object and come back, and from that it can work out as well gestures and figures. And last but not least, as I was saying, we have the Mayo bracelet, and this is even this is a very clever piece of equipment. And you can see the Mayo bracelets up here. What it's got an electromyograph, so it's able to read the electrical activity, the electrical currents that my muscles in the forearm produce when I move my hand. But not only that, it also has an accelerometer and a gyroscope. So I can do a number of range of movements with my forearm and hand, and it can detect that and translate it into whatever signal that the TED Cube can understand. So these are basically, John, the devices that we use, and this is the technology that we are working on at the moment.
Okay, very good. Do you know, I guess I haven't had too much experience with the Kinect, and I guess, as you said, kids use that kind of tech, correct? And they move their hands and they move stuff on computer screens.
Yes. I'm not sure whether I might be able to share a video with you.
Okay, a short video might work.
It's a 2-minute video. Hold on a second.
Okay, this is a totally unscripted moment, folks.
No, I don't think I will be able to.
Okay, well, just describe what it shows. Does it show?
Well, it just shows us working on the operating room with the with all the devices, with the leap motion, with the Kinect, and with the Mayo bracelet.
Okay. Okay. So, go ahead.
Yeah. Why we use 3 different sensors? Basically, because they have different characteristics, and whereas, for instance, as I was saying, the leap motion is very good to work at short distances, some 40, 60 centimeters.
Okay.
The others are, for instance, the Kinect. You can work over a distance of over 2 meters or so.
Okay.
And the bracelet, it doesn't matter. You wear it in your forearm, so you might be operating, and so it doesn't matter where you carry the device with yourself.
Okay.
So they all have different characteristics.
Which one do you use the most?
Personally, the Kinect. The Kinect is the one I use most.
Okay.
But I have and the leap motion, because the Mayo bracelet is not, as I was saying, the actual device is not commercially available yet. We have a couple of them with us, but so far it has a small issue with it. That is that it's not sterile, so I cannot use in real life, so to speak, because when we strap up, we strap up to our elbows and we wear it in our bracelet. So until we have to develop a sterile version of it. So we haven't in a real situation yet.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Would you say that Kinect is the most? Are you the only surgeon in your hospital doing this?
I am the only surgeon. We use it as well with electrophysiologists. They are cardiologists who are specialized in treating heart arrhythmias, and there is a procedure which is called ablation, and they have used it during an ablation procedure as well. It's not fully developed yet, John. We are working on trying to refine the movements and the gestures that you have to do for the system to work properly. But it's very advanced, and I have used it in an actual surgery. I have actually, yes. But the process is not finished yet, and we are the engineers, my colleagues at TEDCAS, working it. Our next step will be to use voice commands, which is not as easy as it might look or sound to start with, but they are making good progress with it.
And you actually be able to move the screen with the sound, with the voice command?
Not only the screen, but also equipment in theater. Equipment, there are particular situations in the hybrid room or in the cath lab when we do the coronary angiographies that we have the X-ray machine, and that has to be moved during the procedure to get different angles at which we look at the heart. And to do that, we actually use a joystick which is covered with a sterile piece of plastic, but that is not ideal. So one of the things that we are looking at is be able to move equipment around with voice commands. That would be.
That's in the future. This is maybe a little bit too technical for some, but being a cardiac surgeon, Rafael, what kind of operations do you need to manipulate images? Is it open heart where you have to manipulate the angiograms? What exactly studies do you have to? Does it help you to manipulate?
Yeah. So for us, when we look at angiograms, exactly, you try to remember beforehand. You look at the images before going into the operating room. But sometimes when you are looking at the actual heart, things probably don't look quite like you thought it did in the angiogram. So up till now, you actually have, as I was saying, ask somebody else to put the angiogram up on the screen in the operating room, or just said, well, let's go with it and hope for the best. This allows you to actually, look at the images and the angiogram in the operating room. Also, sometimes when you are doing more complex surgery, aortic surgery and you want to maybe look at or make new measurements of the size of the different vessels, it also might be useful. But, John, you may know that we are moving now into the world of percutaneous surgery. And now, for instance, to replace a valve, a heart valve, in many occasions, we don't have to do open heart surgery. We do all that through a catheter, which goes through the groin or through a small hole in the chest. And that is all done through images. So we actually don't see what we are doing. We're just looking at the at screen. And in those situations, which are becoming more and more common, frequent, that will be very useful. Also, in those situations in which we are doing these transcatheter valve procedures, in some situations we need to fuse, as we say, images which have been previously taken on a CT scan or whatever, and we need to fuse them with the images that we are taking at that moment with the X-ray machine. Up till now, we have to ask somebody else who may be outside to do that, and you know that might be sometimes difficult, takes time, because sometimes it's quite difficult to make the other person understand what exactly it is that you want. Right. So that will make life so much simpler and easier for not only for cardiac surgeons, but also for cardiologists and vascular radiologists and outside the cardiac part. Neurosurgeons will find it very useful as well. We have shown our system to them. Orthopedic surgeons would find the system. It's a wide range of medical specialties which could make good use of the system.
Oh, one quick question, Rafael. Not being a surgeon myself and not spending too much time with cardiac procedures, before this system came around, would you have to physically walk over to the imaging board and kind of walk through your assistant to move images?
Exactly.
Or would you break scrub and move them yourself with your fingers?
Well, yeah, either. I would probably, I would prefer not to move away from the operating table, so I would normally ask somebody else to move the images and to zoom them in and out, or move around. So I find that sometimes a bit complicated. And,
it is. Okay.
Imagine also, as you know, we are cardiothoracic surgeons. When you're doing operating on lung tumors or cancers, and sometimes you open the chest and it's difficult to figure out exactly what it is, so you may want to have another look at the pictures, at the CT scan pictures. So that's another situation in which you might find the technology quite useful.
Mm-hmm. Okay, John, do you have any questions? Or Dave?
I've missed most of it, but I was curious. I heard of this company, Drift Coast, that is using a LEAP controller in a cardiac surgery environment to actually control a catheter inside of an MRI machine. I'm just wondering if you've heard of anything about that.
I haven't heard about this, John, but I can imagine how it can be done with the LEAP motion. If you have a good gateway, a good system, you can actually get the LEAP motion to do most things that a mouse or you could use with a computer.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
But I haven't heard about.
Okay, just let me interrupt you for a second, Rafael. To get off the screen share, just click on your green arrow in the corner. You're still on the screen share, so we can't see your face. Just click on the green arrow in the menu.
Okay.
And that'll take you off the screen share.
Okay, that's it.
There you go. Okay, Dave, do you have any questions?
Yes, for the technology side, okay. we have some question about first, congratulations for the job that you have done, and I think people for I knew more or less the beginnings from the technology, and then it's a very good result. So then, congratulations, that's the first.
Thank you.
And one of the things to know, so how to introduce, or how easy is to introduce this new technology in the so in the hospital. Yeah.
It's very easy, David. It's a plug and play, so it's just a USB plug, and that's it. There's no need to install any software or anything on any of the computers or workstation. It's as easy as that.
Yeah.
It's very simple.
For the doctor, because when you put something more in the operation room, it's like, okay, I have a new machine, so more machines in the operating room. No, sometimes there is a little refusing for the doctor to enter new devices. No, how is your feeling? How could you argument that?
Yeah, it is very easy to use. It takes 5 minutes to learn how to use the equipment. And you know, it's one of those things that when you get used to it, which is very fast, then it's very simple. It's one of those things that probably you don't miss unless you've used it before. And once you have it at hand and you get used to it, the minute you don't have it, you say, you know, I cannot work without this. And this is going to be one of those things.
Well, I guess in cardiothoracic surgery, there are always new devices and new machines that you're trying out, correct?
Yes, you could say so, yes.
Yeah, it's you have to learn a lot of things. A lot of, you know, they have representatives that will teach you how to use different machines and devices and stuff in the operating room. I think what David meant is it like hospital administration, were they resistant to doing that, or that was no problem whatsoever?
Well, as you know, it all depends on the cost.
Okay.
We had no problem from our hospital administration because we are just trying this and developing this together. It all depends on the cost.
It's not a really expensive system, is it? Because Kinect is not that expensive, and Leap Motion, you could buy that at a Best Buy.
That is not the expensive part, John, and the actual TEDCube is not expensive in itself.
Okay.
What development behind, you know, these guys have been working on this for over a couple of years now.
Oh, okay.
That is the value of it, you know, and the actual TEDCube is nothing. It's plastic with some electrical components inside. It's just the technology which goes with it.
Mm-hmm. So, TEDcast, they're from Madrid? It's a Spanish company, correct?
No, they're a local company from Pamplona, John.
Oh, really? Okay, and so they did all developing of this tech?
Yeah, that's why we're working with them, because they live very close to us. So, you know, I spend a lot of time with them. Meet up with them mostly every week, so that, you know, that's how we are helping there. We are working together with them.
Well, I know that you work a lot with Jesus.
Yes.
And he travels a lot to the United States. That he told me. Does he bring this tech to the United States, and does he present it? Does he present it at conferences?
There are 3 universities, 3 medical schools, which are using the system at the moment on a trial basis, mainly to teach medical students to use them as a simulator. I'm not quite sure exactly what the actual use is, but I know that there are 3 medical schools in the U.S. which are using the technology at the moment.
You know, NASA is using them as well. The JPL lab. They have different projects to control lunar vehicles or lander vehicles, and I'm not sure if it's the Kinect or what, but they're fairly progressed. I'm wondering if you guys are solving the same problem, you know, reinventing the wheel twice.
Well, again, as far as I know, as far as Jesus tells me, there is another competitor in the US, but as far as I know, we appear to be ahead of them. That's what I know. That's all what I can talk about.
Well, I wish I had some other surgeons. Well, I'll be talking to them to see. There's Paul Sotek. He's a trauma surgeon. He knows he works with Google Glass a lot, and he probably would know if other surgeons use the Leap Motion. But certainly they've heard of it.
Yeah. As I said, the Leap Motion is good, but once we get the Mayo bracelet system more developed, I think this is going to be an important step forward. It's an amazing piece of equipment, and I think most people are going to find it even more useful than the Leap or the Kinect.
More or less. How long will it take to be ready? Not only prototype, but just.
At the moment, we just have an alpha version. Jesus told me that we've got 2 beta versions this week. So I'm eager to start using them. So it will, it all depends of the actual manufacturer of the Mayo bracelets, progress for us to be able to, as I said, in our environment, we need it to be sterile, and sure. It is not so far.
Well, this is a question for everybody, and I don't know if you use Google Glass much, Rafael. But I think with Google Glass, can't you give commands by eye motion? Is that? Do you guys know about that, John or Dave? That you can actually make commands with eye motion. Maybe you know, Rafael, too.
Yeah. Well, we've used the Google Glasses as well,
Okay.
and this is what eye motion is also. So our next development will be voice commands and eye motion commands.
Okay.
But that's going to expand the use of the system a lot, for lots of people who, cannot use their limbs or whatever. But I think that's still a while ahead of.
Yeah, it's a very, very early. Very early, yeah. So that's an interesting. You have used, because as you know, there's a tremendous amount of interest in glass in the U.S. and also in Spain. I'm surprised to find out there's so much interest in Spain and Google Glass.
Well, with the Google Glass, there is some problems, particularly to use it in the operating room, because you need an opaque surface behind you. So
right.
We have an alternative to the Google Glasses. I just cannot remember the name of the manufacturer. I know they are made in Boston.
Okay.
And instead of having the screen on the actual glass, you have a screen, a few inches away from your eye. So it's an actual screen. It's a small miniature screen, but for working in an operating room, I think it's going to be more useful than a Google Glass.
Well, that's the impression I got from talking to a lot of people that use glass. It's just going to change according to the need of the person using it. It's one size now, but it's depending upon what you're going to use it for, it'll change completely. The designers will get together with the surgeons, and the surgeons will say, well, can you do this? Can you make it this way? And can you make it that way? Just like, because you guys know what you want.
Exactly. So that is the great thing of my relationship with TEDCAS, in that they are the engineers, and they come to the hospital, to the operating room. They see me operating. They ask me how could we make this technology more useful for you, and I explain, and not only me, but also the neurosurgeons, the orthopedic surgeons, and as I said before, I think that is the secret for a company like this and a technology like this to move forward.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
so,
absolutely.
So it's being used in other fields, as far as you know, Rafael, with TEDCAS?
Yeah, it's been used in actually in an actual operation. It also be used in an orthopedic by an orthopedic surgeon, actually in Italy. They went to Italy and he's been using that in some orthopedic operations.
And you mentioned interventional cardiology too?
Electrophysiology, yeah, we've used it in an electrophysiology suite to do atrial ablation of atrial fibrillation.
Well,
that is very useful.
What a coincidence, my brother! I just talked to my brother in Hawaii. He just had an ablation done.
Well, you can use the Kinect. It's very useful for that. It's very useful.
Well, you know what surprised me, Rafael? He was under anesthesia for 8 hours. That's a long operation.
It's a long one.
Wow. But I guess it's. You don't do ablations, do you?
Not myself. I don't.
Okay.
Not well, we do, John, but the different ones. We do it when we have during the open heart operations. That is something that we don't have. So.
Okay, so you see an expanding role for this type of technology.
Absolutely.
And your specialty.
Absolutely, John. This is, I have no doubt this is going to move forward, quite rapidly. I think the technology is good and it's going to be useful. And as I said before, it's one of those things that you didn't miss before because you didn't know that they existed. But once you get used to it, it's one of those things that you will not be able to live without. It's like, I compare that. I remember the first time I used an iPad. I remember flying from Germany and I was on an airplane and I have an iPod and I was just, using the screen, the touch screen. There was a child next to me and he couldn't believe what I was doing with that device. So now I'm going to be able to have or touchless screens. You're going to be able to do what you do on an iPad, but without touching the screen. That's just going to be the degree of progress that we are going to see on that. And can you imagine your life without an iTouch or on an iPhone, or without a touch screen? It says,
Yeah.
No. So obviously I'm biased.
Well, I know personally. I foresee the day when we'll have like 3 or 4 screens in front of us, like I'm sitting now, and I'll just be moving my hands like this. Yeah. And not even touching a keyboard. I really, maybe I'm being kind of crazy, but I don't know.
But you might be able to move around the screen with the movement of your eyes as well. So
and maybe in 5 years, who knows what's going to be around?
Sure.
When you tell me click on the green thing, you said just blink on the green icon.
Right. Yeah, just look towards it.
Yeah, Rafael, I have a question.
Yes.
I use a product called the Ion Mouse. It's a glove that you wear. It's about $80, and it works really well. It's got 2 buttons for the right click and the left click, and works on RF radio frequency for positioning. But something like that could be used in place of the Leap controller, but I found it's hard to do real precise grabbing motions, like grabbing and resizing a window. Now, can the Leap motion do something like that?
Yeah, it's a good question. Good question.
You can do that with the Leap motion. The Leap motion allows you very precise movements on the screen when we have to measure the size of different organs or the aorta, the screen, and I've done it in several occasions, and you can do it in a very precise manner. With the Leap motion, you cannot do that with the Kinect or with the Mayo, but the Kinect motion allows you very precise movements. Absolutely.
And can you control the mouse resolution on the fly, like going into your settings, and when you want more precise resolution, set it?
Can we hear you?
I'm sorry.
I think we froze here for a second.
Yeah, Rafael looks frozen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you know, John, that's a good question about. I'm wondering if you can kind of click on an icon, with your finger. You know what I mean? Is that what you meant when you said precise movement?
Yeah, well, with the ion glove, since you want to move your hand all the time, you hit the button and it takes it offline temporarily, and it's really handy.
Right.
But you can't control the setting that determines the response. In other words, how fast it responds, how sensitive it is, and they seem like to me the most important parameters that you'd want when you want to go across the whole screen versus really zero in on the edge or the window.
Yeah, I was thinking about changing the screen, clicking on stuff. But I think Rafael alluded to that. He said you could kind of enlarge the image and make it smaller. Well, I guess by moving your fingers. You know how you do it on an iPhone or a Samsung. You kind of move your fingers and that makes the screen bigger. I guess you could do that. You could do that with Leap too. Of course, you don't touch the screen, but you just kind of spread it. Well, gentlemen, I think we have a natural exit there. Rafael fell off the screen. Well, he comes here. He's back on. Rafael, can you hear us? Hello.
Yeah, I'm back.
Okay, Rafael, very good.
Yes. I was.
Okay,
sorry.
You're back on. That's okay. You're back on. And John and I were just talking about the Leap motion. If you want to click on something, you can just move your finger and it'll click on something. Like if you want to change a screen or click on something on the screen or whatever.
Yeah, you can do all that. You can do what a mouse can do.
Oh, okay.
And you can do it in a way you want it to do. So you can actually tell the system what gesture, what movement of your fingers will mean whatever you want it to mean. So it's very open, and you can make a movement with one finger or two fingers, so with your hand spread out
it's configurable. You can configure it for to do many things with the different gests of the hand.
Yeah, it's fully customized, so you can do. Obviously, it's got to be worked out. So it's not that you can teach the system in a few minutes what gesture will mean what. But when you tell the people from TEDcast, I want this gesture, this movement to mean left click. So they do that. For instance, for the Leap, if you want in our system, that's how we have designed it. If you want to measure, for instance, so what you do with your finger, you take the cursor to the point you want to measure, and then if you hold it there for 3 seconds, then it marks that point. Then you move the finger, and it moves the arrow and to another point, and then you keep your finger still there for another 2 seconds, and that's another mark, and then it measures the distance you just made. So that's customized for us, but you can do whatever you want with it.
Okay, if you didn't have a customized system and you had a surgeon that wanted to learn to use this, is it a pretty steep learning curve, or is it pretty easy to learn, you think, for a new surgeon to learn it?
It's very easy, John. I'm not particularly clever,
okay.
And it took me very few minutes to learn how to use it.
Oh, okay.
And the Mayo bracelet, the first version, actually came with a training program, which would take 3 or 4 minutes. But now you don't even need to do that, so it's even faster than that.
Okay, that's good. That's good to hear. I'm sure a lot of surgeons will use it quicker if it's easier to learn.
It is very simple and easy to learn.
Okay, gentlemen, is there anything we haven't covered? What's the general reception like in the hospital? Is everyone kind of amazed? Do other surgeons come stick their head in the OR to see what's going on?
It is one of those things that once people see it, they actually get amazed. They say, "Wow, how can you do that?"
Yeah.
and people do get very interested, and because they many of them can see applications in their own field. It's one of those things that I wish the development was much quicker, but for the developers it takes time to do whatever you tell them what you would like the system to do.
Right.
And because there are so many different things that they could use, they can only at the time, the present moment, and attend to, they can't just move in one direction.
Right.
But as I said, I think once the system, it's just a matter of very fine-tuning now, John. And once we get to the point that then, it's much more widely or easily usable, then I think it's going to move on forward. But as I said, I'm biased. I've seen the whole process of the whole development process, and I might be biased. But I think that it's going to be very useful in many areas. And as you asked, when people see it, people get amazed and say, "Wow, that's fantastic!" And proof of that is that I have submitted an abstract or ideas to different meetings. I'm traveling to London on Sunday because I have been invited to present the technology there in a big cardiology meeting. Then on October I'll be traveling to Milan to the meeting of the European Association for Cardiothoracic Surgery. I might be showing it in Washington in February. So whenever I apply for to present it in different meetings, I very quickly get it accepted. So I think people actually like the idea.
Is it any other specialty that you see a particular big application of this tech that you think that this specialty will benefit greatly by this?
Yeah, as far as I can see, apart from the cardiology, cardiac surgery, I think that thoracic surgeons will find it useful as well. And there is a thoracic surgeon in Los Angeles which is very interested in the system. I think that neurosurgeons will find it very useful because they use navigators for their operations. Orthopedic surgeons, trauma surgeons will find it also useful because sometimes when they are working on fractures, they can have the image of the CT scan on the screen and they can guide their devices with the system. And also the interventional radiologists, the radiologists who put stents and do angiograms in their brain or in the other vessels, they will find it very useful. Any surgical or medical specialty who use imaging for the procedures will find it very useful.
Well, one field of imaging that's growing tremendously, which you probably know about, is ultrasound, because ultrasound is being used a heck of a lot more in the emergency room than when I was working there 15 years ago. Now they're using ultrasounds almost for everything, and I'm sure there's a lot of, since it's new, a lot of docs will have to move images and stuff like that. First, they have to learn how to read them, but then I'm sure there'll be a lot of manipulation of imaging.
Yeah, well, the thing with that, John, is that when you are doing an ultrasound, you don't need to be sterile. Your hands don't need to be sterile. You see,
okay.
So you won't be able to touch any screen or anything with your hands. So
this tech wouldn't apply. Okay.
Yeah.
You could just move it yourself without worrying about.
So that would be easier. Yeah.
Okay. Very good. Anything else, gentlemen?
Nope. Very interesting.
Yes.
Okay, well, I guess you're doing a lot of traveling. You didn't have to travel very far for this, just to your desktop. So, thank you very much for taking the time tonight, Rafael, and thanks, Dave and John, for coming by. And anytime you have some new news or something new you're doing in the OR, just shoot me an email. I'll be glad to do another hangout.
Excellent. Well, John, thank you very much. It's been a great pleasure to be here with you. I'll meet David and John. And I look forward to meeting you, either on a hangout or in real life.
Maybe you'll see him in Philadelphia or Seville. Maybe we'll see you all meet in Seville.
Well, you're always welcome to come over and run before the Bulls.
Oh, yeah, of course everyone has to ask you that. I know. I didn't ask you that purposely. I know everyone else does. But, okay, thank you very much, gentlemen. I'm going to shut off the broadcast. Stick around for a second.
All right.
Thank you.